I'm speaking to you from Rose Craddock Holiday Village, where we're on holiday. It's beautiful surroundings in which to rest, to pray, to reflect. And when we look at a psalm like Psalm 34 in such a context where there's beauty and life is good, it's easy to agree with David's sentiments that those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. But obviously there are times in our lives when that's not true. And I can think of a particular instance when we were in Pakistan in 1999 when shortly after the birth of Lydia, Kate as a midwife realised there was something wrong with how Lydia was sitting or trying to sit. And so Kate took Lydia back to the Aga Khan University Hospital where she was born for the consultant to have a look. I remember I was on the balcony of our flat waiting anxiously for Lydia and Kate's return from the hospital. We were due to go to a tea meeting that evening and we were late. And they were late getting back from the hospital and I was anxious. Well, they did come after a while and Kate climbed the steps to the flat with Lydia, and I could see that Lydia was wearing some kind of harness. And when we were inside the flat, Kate explained that the doctor, the consultant, had diagnosed Lydia as having a congenital hip dislocation and had prescribed this harness. But Kate knew, and probably the consultant knew, that at that point the harness actually wouldn't be effective, that more was required. And so we started communication with Dr. David Drew, and David arranged a consultation with a paediatric surgeon in the UK. Lydia was required to go back to the UK for 2 operations for 6 weeks at a time, and to wear frog plaster after the surgery. But I was left in Karachi on my own, and it was a difficult time, not just because of being apart from Kate and Lydia, but from a sense of not knowing how Lydia was doing, how the operations were going, and the sense of knowing that Lydia was not particularly comfortable in the summer heat with the frog plaster. So if you had asked me at that point whether I agree with the sentiments of David in Psalm 34, perhaps I would have been less ready to voice my yea and amen to David's claims. And yet I always remember years ago, Kate and I went to see a financial consultant in Taunton, near to where we were living in Bridgewater, concerning investment in a pension fund. A supporting church requested us to start a pension fund for our senior years. And so we went to see this consultant and spoke with him about what would be suitable for us to open as some kind of portfolio. So we were reticent about investing in the stock market. The consultant brought out a graph and showed us how the stock market had done since the 1930s to the 1990s, and pointed out the peaks and troughs of different eras. Obviously, the Second World War in the mid-1930s, the difficult years in the 1950s, the austerity and other periods during that time, and yet showed us how an investor would have done had he put his money in particular bonds or particular portfolios in the stock market in the 1930s, what he would have earned by the 1990s, proving to us that actually the stock market, investing in the right portfolio, was a good thing to do. And I've often thought of our life with the Lord in a sense of, in the same way that in our lives there are peaks and troughs. And it's like a graph. If we think of the graph, the y-axis being our particular needs at any particular point, whatever needs they may be, and the x-axis being God's provision, God's supply over time. And on this graph, there will be peaks and troughs. And if we look at any one point at this graph, again, in the light of Psalm 34, we may doubt what David is saying. And yet, if we draw a line across the peaks over the years, we will see a steady increase of God's provision, a steady increase of God's supply during our times of need, demonstrating God's goodness to us over a lifetime of serving him. And in our senior years, as we reflect on our time with the Lord, as we seek to fear the Lord in our working out our salvation day by day, we can rejoice in our enjoyment of the Lord, but also in a life well lived that testifies to his goodness and grace over the years, despite the troughs that we've experienced. So I hope this short testimony encourages you today, whatever place you're at.
And now I'm fine.
Right.